Law enforcement speaking about what is being investigated as a possible second attempted assassination of former President Trump at a golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. The Trump campaign releasing the statement just after 2 p.m. Eastern. President Trump is safe following gunshots in his vicinity. No further details at this time. Good evening. I'm Molly Line. Eric, good to be with you.
Hello, Molly. I'm Eric Shawn. Thank you for joining us, folks, in this special edition, 2 hours of the Fox Report. It was a tragedy so narrowly averted this afternoon. A Secret Service agent on the advance team on the golf course, a few holes ahead of the former president as he played the Trump International Golf Course. He was in the 5th hole in West Palm Beach, Florida, while that agent spotted a muzzle of a weapon poking through a chain-link fence. The gunman secreted by bushes. That agent opening fire, the suspect now in custody. David Spunt on the phone now with more on that suspect and this developing story that came so close, it seems. Hi, David.
Yeah, hey, Eric. Hey, Molly. We're told the suspect's name is Ryan Wesley Ruth, R-O-U-T-H. Not much more known about him at this time, except that he's the suspect currently in custody right now. Palm Beach Sheriff's Office says that he was taken into custody by the Martin County Sheriff's Office, just the county north of Palm Beach, was taken into custody after escaping the scene in his black SUV. According to the sheriff in Palm Beach, he did not make any sort of initial statement when he was taken into custody. They're expected to be releasing more details, a mugshot, whatnot later. But we're continuing to dig into who he is, who Ryan Ruth is, where he's from, his background. We're seeing a little bit online. We want to be careful and make sure we have all of the information correct before we present it to our loyal viewers. But we can tell you right now that his name is Ryan Wesley Ruth. Eric, Molly.
And we want to be careful with the information because we want to get it from authorities and not go into speculation. Any sense, though, from what you've been able to determine, what could have potentially been a motive yet? Or is it much too early, David, in terms of politics, in terms of background, the fact that the gunman allegedly had a GoPro to potentially shoot and film and video what he was going to do and put it on social media? What allegedly motivated this potential assassin?
Well, I'm going to be honest, we don't know at this time. I mean, this is coming from 2 law enforcement sources, the name. I think they're trying to figure that stuff out right now. Every case is different, but for perspective when it comes to motive, and this is a question that we've asked many times covering law enforcement, when can you decide what makes a motive? The July 13th shooter, Thomas Crooks, who died on the scene there and was killed by law enforcement, the FBI still has not been able to come out with a motive in that case, and there's a possibility there may not be a motive in this case. There were some shootings, and this was not a shooting today, and the former president thankfully was not hurt, but there are cases where there are no motives. That may not be the situation here. It's just too early to tell, given the fact this is only 4 hours old. They're still talking to him, figuring things out, going through his social media, seeing if he had stuff written down. But the advantage that law enforcement has here that they did not have in the case in Pennsylvania is they have a suspect who's alive, who's in custody, who can speak to them so they can find out stuff a lot quicker, Eric.
Yeah, a Martin County sheriff said that he had no affect. He was blank. He really didn't say anything when he was arrested in his Nissan SUV on I-95. A remarkable job, by the way. A witness took pictures of the SUV and the license plate, so they were immediately able to put the license plate number into the computer system that, on those Easy Pass on the highway, were able to capture it so they knew exactly what the SUV was, so they were able to pull him over. Any sense at all from what we know about him in terms of how that happened, what his planning was, even the fact that he secreted himself in bushes, and as we have been reporting here on the Fox News channel all afternoon, President Trump does not have the security level of a sitting president. That street was not closed. No one saw him in the bushes.
Exactly, Eric, and it's important to point out that the Secret Service, is equipped to take care of, obviously, protecting former presidents. But former President Trump's a different situation because he is actively running for president. He is the Republican nominee. He's out and about. He's holding rallies. He's seeing people. Other former presidents, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, of course, they have Secret Service protection, but nothing on the level of the current president. So the Secret Service right now, per multiple sources who work in the agency, admittedly is grappling with the fact that they're dealing with a former president who's running for president again and needs to have a higher security posture, a stronger security posture out there. And with two incidents in just 2 months, a little bit over 2 months, July 13th and September 15th, it, I think, brings that to the forefront. As far as his vehicle, he was in a black SUV. What's not clear is perhaps was the SUV thought to be law enforcement. Law enforcement travels in black SUVs. That's very common. Motorcades, whatnot. It's not clear any of that right now could be the case, but it's a question that we're asking. We want to know, was the SUV something that perhaps was not overly looked at because it was an SUV that looked like a member of law enforcement's SUV? So these are all questions we need to ask. But as far as motive, as far as any other information, we just don't want to speculate. Of course, we all want to know the answers, but as of now, we just don't know those answers.
Yeah, and don't you think this will instigate calls tomorrow to ramp up the security on former President Trump?
Oh, absolutely. No question. It'll ramp up the calls to change the security, to change the perimeter, if anything, because the security apparatus, as far as the people, I spoke to someone in Secret Service today who's a rank-and-file agent and said that they did a good job in the sense that they were able to, get this suspect and see a gun pointing out through bushes. I mean, that's incredible to be able to see that. However, the perimeter is the issue that they're grappling with right now, because that perimeter should have not allowed somebody to be able to get through bushes, through a fence, and potentially harm the former president. I mean, as you heard the Palm Beach sheriff say, he was 300 to 500 yards away at a different hole, but it doesn't matter if you have a scope. It's very dangerous.
Yes. And we thank the professionalism, and the nation must give gratitude and sincere thanks to that agent who is cool, calm, and in his professionalism saw a muzzle and opened fire on that suspect to prevent a tragedy.
And
David
they caught
Spunt.
the suspect right away, which is incredible.
Absolutely.
In Martin County.
David, thank you. Molly?
You're welcome. Thanks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.